Good evening, and welcome to this voter services event from the League of Women Voters, Edwardsville Area, with the collaboration of our partner organization, the Edwardsville chapter of the NAACP. I'm going to have President of that chapter, Walt Williams, speak to you for just a minute first.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Each year, the NAACP partners with the League of Women Voters. We believe, just as you believe, that an enlightened electorate is the best way to combat misinformation. So with that, I hand it back over to you.
Yes. The League of Women Voters recently celebrated its 100th anniversary, and it's a national organization devoted to educating voters and encouraging voting. The NAACP, likewise, with a mandate to advance and promote the achievement of their rights of people of color, has a long history of promotion of informed voting. Democracy requires an informed and involved electorate. The League of Women Voters is affiliated with no political candidate or party as an organization, although it has positions on matters such as education, community welfare, and the environment. Our members reflect a variety of personal political opinions. As an organization, we are mandated to provide fair and informative voter services events. Tonight's event includes candidates for Madison County Clerk and Recorder, in order, Illinois State Senator 56th District, next, Illinois Representative to the General Assembly 112th Representative District, and Judge of the Circuit Court 3rd Circuit Subdistrict 1, which is these three candidates. All candidates you see are running for different races. Despite every candidate for every race being invited, only one candidate for each race has chosen to participate. And those are the ones you see here. And if you have the list of candidates, you'll see all the ones that had been invited, and the ones that say will attend are the ones who are present. Tonight's event is being recorded by the videographer from the city of Edwardsville and will be available for later viewing on the League of Women Voters Edwardsville Area Facebook page and website. We ask that no other recording take place, as the FCC and the League rules require the event not to be edited but to be broadcast only in its entirety. Other sources of information regarding the position of candidates can be found on the Illinois Voter Guide, which includes candidate question and answers where those were supplied, and which is posted on our website, League of Women Voters Edwardsville Area, and through illinoisvoterguide.org. It's from the League of Women Voters Illinois. The League of Women Voters Illinois Voter Guide presents the amendment to the Illinois Constitution, which will be on your ballot in November, including the pro and con arguments. The League has no position on this amendment, so we present the pro and con arguments. We weren't able to find speakers both pro and con, so we direct you to this source of information. There's also an advisory question on from Edwardsville Township regarding universal health care, and there's a Glen Carbon advisory question regarding library programming. You can look on your sample ballot, which you can get from Madison Votes, to find out how these read, and look up what you can to educate yourself. The candidates for the U.S. Representative to Congress for the 13th District, two new candidates that are contesting that. These candidates will be engaged in a debate on October 6th, which will be broadcast from 7 to 8 on Illinois Public Media, and will be also available for later viewing on the Illinois Public Media Facebook page and YouTube channel. Local Channel 9, the PBS station, will air this at 8 p.m. That's this Thursday. Also, we are told that the Alton YWCA has a candidate forum on October 18th, and you can contact them for the specifics. Redistricting presents a lot of confusion for the voters this year. Some judicial candidates chose not to be present due to a change whereby only some local citizens will vote in their races, although other candidates for those races did choose to attend. If, as a voter, you are not sure what district you are in terms of congressional district, state legislative district, state representative district, county board district, we have some maps available in the lobby to assist you. Looking at the voter's certificate of registration or your voter's card, which was sent to you earlier this year, may be the only way to be sure. And you can check whether your polling place has changed also, as mine did. Almost all of these districts have been changed recently, so it's important to keep track. Also, you can go on Madison Votes and find out all the answers to all these districts, which ones are yours. Now we have the candidates, which I will introduce one by one, and they're seated in the order in which they're listed in the paper that you have access to. I want you candidates to understand that when 1 minute remains in your introduction, you'll see a 1 minute sign raised in the front row. And at the end of the allotted time, you see a stop sign. Today, each candidate will be given 5 to 7 minutes to present him or herself to the voters, and we're not going to be particularly worried about timing because we are fortunate to have these candidates. We want to hear everything they have to say, and we have plenty of time. However, our timers are in training, so, so they may do some timing anyway, but I've already explained to the candidates they shouldn't be concerned. We have plenty of time. The list of candidates is on the table in the lobby. Please get one if you don't have one in between presentations. And we have the candidates sitting in the correct order so that it will be easy for you to follow. I'll introduce each candidate and they will present themselves to you, the voters. I'm going to ask the first candidate, Debbie Ming Mendoza, who is a candidate and also currently holds the position of Madison County Clerk and Recorder. I'm going to ask her to begin tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Rachel. In fact, Ms. Rachel has already done my meet and greet and presentation. She told you where to vote, the voter guides, where to go, and what to expect. So thank you all very much for having me. My name is Debbie Ming Mendoza. I live in Granite City. My husband and I, we have a son with 2 rambunctious grandchildren. They keep me young. In fact, my 6-year-old granddaughter has decided she wants to be a politician, and I take her with me door to door, and she does most of the talking. She introduces me as her DD and vote for me. So I love that. Let's see, 10 years ago, I became the county clerk. And at that time, early voting was electronic. Some of us may remember that, where we had the electronic voting devices, and election day was paper. When I came into office, that did not make sense to me for several reasons, but the 2 most important is electronic voting is very expensive to maintain, and voters don't trust it. So we changed early voting to a paper ballot to be on the same platform as election day. Something goes wrong with the election, we have that ballot to retabulate. So I hope it's worked out very well for the voters here in our county, and I hope you continue to vote early. If you're not an early voter, we have vote by mail. In fact, 174,000 vote-by-mail registration requests went out a couple of weeks ago, and we have mailed over 10,000 ballots as of this afternoon. So it is very exciting to see so many people take advantage of that. Now, a lot of us hear about how easy it is to cheat or commit voter fraud with vote by mail. Well, I'm here to tell you that that is not true, and that it's very, very well guarded by election judges and myself. We pride ourselves in maintaining the security of vote by mail, the same as I do on election day when a voter shows up in person. Our signature, our address is what we go by. And if something doesn't look right, election judges notify me, and we put a halt to things. I am the gatekeeper of the voter fraud announcement or acknowledgement if an election judge has an issue, or if we catch someone in the process. I then notify law enforcement, and the law enforcement then takes it to the state's attorney's office. And believe me when I tell you that has happened multiple times. We have confronted and stopped before any ballot was cast of someone attempting to defraud and make our elections not perfect. Again, I work hard every day, and I take a lot of pride in making sure that our hard work in the county clerk's office makes it easy for you, and I hope to maintain your trust. And if I don't have that trust right now, I'll work even harder to gain that trust. We have specialists in our office on cybersecurity. We all have taken classes to recognize when a bad actor is attempting to cause an issue. And just to clear up, we are not connected to the internet on our voting. Paper ballots go through a tabulator. It is not connected to the internet. The image, it's an image of the ballot and the shades on the ballot of how you voted. And at the end of the night, those shaded ovals for each ballot that was cast is accumulated and tallied. And that information is stored on a memory card, and that memory card is uploaded via a dedicated telephone line to the county so that we can push results out to you as quickly as possible. In 2020, due to a referenda that was passed in Madison County, I became the recorder as well as the county clerk. And one of the first things that I did as the recorder was to remove over 60% of the budget from the general fund and off of your tax bill. We have millions of documents that are very valuable to organizations and agencies such as title companies, utility companies, construction companies. We have subscribers, and they pay to get that information now, which funds the county recorder's office. It's no longer on the backs of you and on your tax bill. So we are very excited about that. We also have started a property fraud program that if any document is recorded in your name, I will send you either a text or an email acknowledging that something has been recorded in your name, and that if you want, you might know that to be an okay document. But if you haven't recorded anything recently, You're given a phone number to call, and we'll help you check that out and decide whether or not it's legitimate or not, and whether or not you should contact legal counsel to find out what is happening. I keep looking at my timers over here, but I just want so much for you to feel confident about the offices in which you've given me the responsibility for. I feel and I know in my heart that no one can work harder than I do. I get to work early in the morning and I come home. I just left the office to come here, and that's what I do most every day. I think about how to be better. I think about what I can do to gain more confidence in elections, or gain more confidence for you to have in the county clerk's office. I want one more thing. I want to talk about vital records in the county clerk's office. I maintain and protect all of your vital records: birth, death, marriage. And we've just recently went to a new platform that will allow you as a resident to go online and order that document instead of having to come into the office and pick one up. The only exception to that is a marriage record. You can apply for a marriage record, but it is still required by law that you come in person so that we can validate your ID and make sure that you really do want to get married. You would be surprised at how many faces that we see that aren't smiling. And I have to ask, are you sure this is what you want to do? And usually the bride will say, well, of course it's what he wants to do. and the groom just kind of looks at me like, help. But I love what I do. I love coming to work every day, and I hope that I've just in a small way expressed that love to you, and I would appreciate your support on November the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've just heard from Debbie Ming Mendoza, who is a candidate for and currently holds the office of Madison County Clerk and Recorder. Next, I would like to hear from the Illinois State Senator 56th District candidate, Chris Tharp. This is a position that was held by Rochelle Outcrow, and is now, there are two contestants running, and this is Chris Tharp, who's going to present himself to you, the voters.
Good evening. I am Chris Tharp, and I am your senator for the 56th Legislative District, and I hope with your vote I'll continue to have that honor into 2023 and beyond. Tonight, I know that I'm a new face for some of you, and I'd like to talk to you about who I am, and I would like to discuss the importance of perspective and the importance of representation. And I'd like to start that out by telling you a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Wood River to a single mom. When I was born, my father left, and he left my mother to raise my brother and I on her own. And she was a young housewife, and she was left with some really tough decisions. My mom became a CNA, a certified nurse's assistant, and the hours were very long. The pay was very low. It was a poverty wage, and my family struggled. And if it was not for the support of our community, of our church, of the government, we were on food stamps. We had the medical card. If it wasn't for that type of support, I just don't know where I would be today, where my brother would be. But we came together. And I and my brother, we both learned the importance of hard work. We didn't have a car in my family until I was in high school. My mom would walk to work in one direction. My brother and I would walk to school in the other. But we got through. The goodwill of the men and women in our community is what got us through, and it's just something that I'll never forget. I'm the product of public schools. I went through the Wood River school system. I graduated from Wood River High School in 1994. I was the first person in my immediate family to put himself through college. It's something that I'm very, very proud of. I actually put myself through as an adult learner. While working full-time, I went through and I got my associate's degree at Lewis and Clark Community College. Later got my undergrad and my graduate degree from Lindenwood University. I became a police cadet at 18 years old in the city of Wood River, my hometown. At 21, I was a police officer in North St. Louis County. In 1999, I returned to be a police officer at the Madison County Sheriff's Office. That's where I currently work. I'm a captain there now. And when I got hired at the Sheriff's Office, I was given the opportunity to work hard and to earn my place there. And that's what I did. And I was able to move up through the ranks to eventually become a captain. I spent most of my career as a detective at the Sheriff's Office investigating violent crimes. I can say that I've worked violent crimes and advocated for crime victims and vulnerable populations in every city within this district. I'm a deputy commander on the Major Case Squad at Greater St. Louis. That means that I command and oversee complex and dynamic murder investigations. I've done that also in every city within this district. I've spent my entire career advocating for those that needed a voice, for crime victims, for vulnerable populations, for our senior citizens. On that vein, I'm also very proud to say that I'm the founder and president of Madison County Triad. That's an organization that partners law enforcement with senior citizen service providers to give our area senior citizens the resources and the information they need to have happy and successful lives, to thrive, to get them plugged into their communities, to get them plugged into the tremendous resources we have in our district. That's something that I'm very proud of, and that's an initiative that has touched every community within this district. Again, something that I'm extraordinarily proud of. If you're not familiar with Madison County Triad, I ask you to please look into it and find out what we're about and consider joining. In my journey, there's some things that I want to share about you. I talked about perspective, and I would like to talk to you about the importance of that. You know, I talked about those lean years growing up, and I know what it feels like for a family to have to make a decision whether or not they can buy a prescription or they can buy groceries. I lived through it, and I've never forgotten what that felt like. I know what it's like to stand in line for powdered milk and government cheese, peanut butter, the staples that were provided by the government, because I did that, and I'm grateful for it. And I just don't know where I'd be if that wasn't afforded to my family and I. It's important you have somebody in Springfield that also understands that. I'm a cancer survivor. My mom is a cancer survivor. I know what that feels like. I know that fear on how are you going to support your family? How are we going to pay the bills? Will the insurance cover what we have coming at us? As your senator now, as your senator moving forward, I will always fight to ensure that pre-existing conditions does not disqualify our citizens from the health care that they need. I will always fight to ensure that prescription medicine costs are low enough to where it does not break the backs of our hardworking families at a time when they're most vulnerable, at a time when they need it the most. Again, I have been there. My family has been there. It's a lesson that I will not forget, and I'm going to fight hard to ensure that we continue to be that voice in Springfield for those families. I'm a proud union member. I have been my entire adult life. So was my wife. Speaking of, my wife's in the crowd today, and my greatest accomplishment by far is my family. I've been married for 23 years. Our anniversary was this last weekend. And we have two wonderful sons. My oldest son is an Army veteran. He's a Wood River police officer. Our youngest son, Cameron, is in his first year of college. As your senator, I know there's a lot of things that we're worried about right now. There's a lot of things that we see on social media, and that's why I'm so thankful to have this opportunity to stand with you today, to tell you about who I am. It's my obligation, it's my honor to share that with you. And I was so excited about today because I wanted to hear from the other candidates, but I'm thankful that you're here, and I'm thankful for the candidates that are here today, and I want to thank them for showing up to share their stories as well. As your senator, we're going to ensure that we're investing in infrastructure, We have a viable waterway, the Mississippi River, that's going to bring commodities into this district. Railways, highways, the best workforce in the country is right here. We're going to invest in them to ensure that this district continues to thrive. We're going to invest in vocational schools because while college was the path for me, it's not for everybody. And we're going to ensure those opportunities for the young people that want to work with their hands, that they have the chance to build things because we need them. We're going to cross-train our workforce to where they meet the challenges and the technologies that we're on the verge of, the breakthroughs that we're about to make as a state, as a country. We're going to ensure that our workforce right here is built for speed and continued success. We're going to ensure that our neighborhoods are safe. The Safety Act. There is no one in the General Assembly that is better prepared to take on this challenge than myself. As a police officer at 25 years, I've dedicated my life to ensuring that our communities are safe. Without safe communities, nothing thrives. There is no one better suited than I to support law enforcement, to fight for an equitable system, and to ensure that as a state, as a district, we're moving forward in a fair way that supports our hero first responders. That goes for police, fire, and EMS. And lastly, we're going to fight to lessen the tax burden on our hardworking families. We all want well-funded public schools. I'm a product of that. But we cannot simply fund our schools through property taxes. The state has to find viable ways to appropriate funds to ensure that our educators who guided me and served as role models throughout my life, that they can do that for someone else. We have to find ways to appropriate money to fund those schools, not solely off the backs of those that buy homes and they're paying property taxes. And I think that we can do that. I want to go back and talk about representation and perspective once more. You need someone in Springfield from Southern Illinois that is going to fight and is going to represent what our interests are. You need someone that is going to fight for women's rights, that's going to fight for the victims of criminal sexual assault and incest, that's going to stand up for women and not tell them how they should govern themselves. In me, you will have that. This Senate seat is, and it always will be, a voice for everyone, whether you have little or whether you have abundance. This seat is a seat for the entire district, not just certain people. I thank you for the chance to be here tonight. I'm humbled that you came here, and I ask for your support. I ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Voters, you've heard from Chris Tharp, candidate for Illinois State Senator, 56th District. Next, I'm going to ask our candidate for Illinois Representative in the General Assembly, 112th Representative District, who is the current office holder, to speak. That is Katie Stewart.
Thank you. And thank you so much to the League of Women Voters and the NAACP for putting this all together. I know that it's a lot of hard work and a lot of time to put this forum together, and I'm disappointed that everybody did not choose to attend, because I think it's really one of our only opportunities to really share about ourselves in a public forum, and that's so important to voters. So I really thank you for doing this, and thank you to all of you who are here tonight, because taking the time out of your beautiful fall evening to come and spend time with us. And I'm proud to be on this stage with all the people that are here with me. I was lucky enough to be elected for the first time in 2016 as your state representative. Since then, I've been focused on sponsoring and working on and passing legislation that has real impacts in really the daily lives of all of us residents all across the 112th, but also citizens across the whole state of Illinois. Because while I represent the 112th District, I am a state representative, and what we do in Springfield does affect the entire state. Our current term began January of 2021. In that term, I've passed 30 bills. Just in that term, they've all been signed into law. Those pieces of legislation came from real problems, often, that were brought to me by members of our community. They focus on making lives better for children, students, seniors, women, and just the community as a whole. One thing I'm really proud to have become, well, I've always been an advocate for, but to be able to spend a lot of time working on, and a lot with the help of our wonderful County Clerk, and others, and help from the League of Women Voters, is being an advocate for greater access to voting. Voting really is the foundation of our democracy, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure that no one is disenfranchised, that everybody who is supposed to have their voice heard has that opportunity to have their voice heard. Everybody should be able to cast their ballot. We made sure to direct federal funds to the election authorities so that they can maintain secure collection of sites for the return of vote-by-mail ballots. Voting by mail is so vitally important to make sure that everyone has their opportunity. I personally really like vote by mail. Former teacher, I tell people it's a take-home test where you can't get any of the answers wrong, but you can use all of the cheat sheets that you want to decide what those answers are. We also started the process of improving ballot access to those that are visually impaired and have other impairments that impede their ability to vote personally and privately, just like everybody else. We also made it easier for young people who want to be involved to become election judges and just be involved in that process. We know that when you create a young voter, you create a lifelong voter, and that's so vitally important to our democracy. As a former teacher and also the chair of the Higher Education Committee in the House, education is one of the focal points of my legislative agenda. I've supported budgets that have put more funding for local school districts. I've supported other legislation that strengthens schools and improves the learning environment for the educators and the students. One of those includes the landmark legislation to raise teacher pay to a minimum of $40,000 across the state so that we can be competitive in attracting new teachers. I really worry about the teacher shortage crisis that we are on the precipice of, and many of us are seeing effects of that already in schools and classrooms across the state. I also passed legislation to update the State Board of Education school report card. That's what we see as citizens, where we can get a sense of what's going on in local school districts. It now includes information about the number of national board certified teachers, and it also the demographics of not just the students enrolled in the school, but also the faculty in school, to make sure that we understand the diversity or the lack of diversity in our districts. Recently, there was a disturbing story that came to light that involved a teacher in the Granite City District, a story that had happened years prior. There was an online book released about this. I don't know if everyone, I don't want to rehash the details of the story. But it detailed a sexual relationship with a female student who was then 18 years old. I introduced legislation just last week to make sure that we close a loophole in the law that would allow that teacher to be cleared of all criminal wrongdoing because the student was above the legal age of consent at the time. No educator should ever have that kind of relationship with a student, regardless of their age. And no student can ever truly consent to a relationship like that. And we have to make sure that we are closing that loophole, preventing grooming of students, as well as what is sexual assault. When it comes to women's issues, I've been a very strong voice to make sure that women have and keep the right to make their own decisions when it comes to their bodies and their reproductive health care, regardless of what might happen and what is happening in Washington and in other states across the country. I also think that no one should ever be put at risk of suffering from later stage cancer that could have been easily detected earlier on and curable and treatable just because they can't afford a medical diagnostic testing. So I sponsored legislation that would require insurance companies to provide coverage for BRCA1 and BRCA2 genetic testing if it's recommended by healthcare providers, and other similar types of testing for detectable cancers. I believe everyone needs access to hygiene products, and we also need to end menstrual stigma. I passed legislation which requires every public university and community college to make menstrual hygiene products available at no cost in bathrooms on campus. Senator Tharp talked about his work in creating the Madison County Triad, and I agree, we all want to make sure our seniors are treated with dignity and respect. I actually worked with Senator Crow to create the Elder Abuse Task Force, and Senator Tharp, in his role as on the Sheriff's Department was part of that elder abuse task force and was a vital member and brought lots of information and ideas to us. So I was co-chair of that task force. That task force met frequently. We developed legislation and strategies that'll increase public awareness of elder abuse, looking at financial abuse as well as physical abuse and neglect. In the short time I have tonight, I just wanted to be able to highlight just a few of the important pieces of legislation that I've passed and issues that I've worked on that I believe are really making a real difference in our communities and for people all around us. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to work with local members of the community and to know the positive impact that our work has on everyone. I know we can continue to make Illinois a better place for everyone. I will continue to fight for our residents and our region. I'm always striving to make the Metro East a great place to live, work, and raise a family, and I hope to be able to continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you. You have just heard from the candidate and current office holder for Illinois Representative in the General Assembly, 112th Representative District, that is Katie Stewart. Going down the list, we're going to now get to the judicial candidates for the 3rd Circuit Subdistrict 1. This is a change. This district has been recently redistricted, and you may or may not have these candidates on your ballot. Each of the candidates is running for judge of the circuit court, 3rd District, Subdistrict 1, but each of these 3 candidates is running in a separate race. The other candidate in each race did not choose to be here, so it should be made clear that there are 3 separate races, that we have these candidates, 1 candidate for each. I'm going to ask for the first candidate, Judge John Barry Julian, to speak next.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to ask you ladies down here to do me a favor. Can you time and tell me when 3 minutes is up? Because then I'm going to get serious, okay? We're going to do this a little differently. These people here have heard me talk a dozen times, some of you. You know my life story, every minute of it. I said they know every minute of my life story. You don't, and thank you for telling me that. I want to ask you a question. How many of you know who I am? Yes, ma'am, tell me. Or tell everybody.
How I know you?
Yes, ma'am. I can't even see who you are.
It's Marla, by the way.
Oh, hi, Marla.
I work with the.
Right, she was my boss when I was an associate judge. She won't call it that, but she was. Somebody else raised their hand over here. Who was that? Okay, ma'am. Oh, Lord, you opened a whole big can of worms with that statement. Anybody else? Don't be afraid. If you know me at all, have any idea who I am or what I've done, raise your hand and tell me. I want to hear. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you Mrs. Tolbert? Because I can barely see you back there. Yes, it's good to see you again. It's been a few weeks at least. Can you all still hear me? Okay. She said she was a former patient of mine, and she worked with my wife and her sisters in the St. Joe's Hospital, as I recall. All of them? You were really blessed. All the sisters, all of them, and you survived it. Good, you're doing well. Okay, let's get something a little different. What do you expect from a judge? Come on. Marla probably knows. I'm sorry, what? Fairness, good. If you had told me that a few months ago, you would have saved me $20,000 that I paid for a poll to find out what people wanted from a judge. They wanted to be treated fairly, they wanted to be treated honestly, and they wanted a judge that would follow the law. And if you ask these people here, these 2 candidates and me, we're going to tell you we're going to do all those things. Now, if you ask the other that wouldn't even show up, they're going to tell you they're going to do all those things, but they wouldn't even come here. So do you believe them? Can you believe them? No. Now, my grandmother taught me if you can't say anything good about somebody, don't say anything, so I'm not going to talk about them anymore, okay? They are out of it. What do you expect me to do if I get elected? other than be fair, and be honest, and follow the law. Treat everybody equally. Show up on time. Work all day, right? If you had anybody, I'm sorry? You got it. Except if you have a case in front of me and you have an attorney, you can't come in without that attorney with you. I won't talk to you without your attorney being present or the opposing attorney, okay? There are rules we have to follow. One of them is you can't just walk in and start talking, right? Because they will be a referee in a ball game. And our job is going to be to make sure that everybody follows the rules, everybody gets treated fairly and honestly, and we follow the law, okay? That's what everybody's not been there yet. Judge Jumper and I have. You go to new judge school, and they teach you all those things, and they teach you how to make sure you're doing things by the numbers and following the law, and how you keep bias out of your judgments and out of your opinions. Sir, what's bias? Yeah, I want to make sure you're awake. You haven't moved. Right. Do you want me to keep going? Do you want me to get back to telling you who I am, where I went to school, and all that boring stuff? You want me to keep going? Okay, bias is when I have a prejudice and I don't even know I have it. Okay? It's pretty much that simple. If I know I've got it, it's really just a prejudice. I mean, it's plain, it's there. You know you got it. Bias is when you have a slant in your opinion. Okay, and you may not even be aware of it, but that's what you have to look for. Judge Jumper said something to me once about a case that he was talking to a woman in that indicated to me that he was very aware of the bias that that woman had. And that's what judges have to look for. Don't let your bias interfere with your judgment. If you have a case coming before you and you are aware that you are prejudiced or biased, don't take the case. Recuse yourself. There are other judges that someone else do that does not have that bias. Now, does anybody have anything else they want to talk about before I start telling you how old I am and where I went to school? No? Okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I am because I might shock you. I am every bit as old as I look, okay? I live in unincorporated Edwardsville, just out here on the north side of town. I've lived there for about 5 years now. My wife and I had a new house built. Before that, we lived for a few years in Florida because I retired and I didn't like retiring, so I came back. Before that, we lived in Fox Creek subdivision for about 4 years. Before that, I lived in the Alton area from 1961 when my parents moved up here. My father worked at a place down in southern Missouri that went out of business, and he had to get a job, and there were no decent jobs down there, and he had a sister in Alton, so that's where we went. I've been married to the same woman for 45 years, which is kind of a record for an attorney in this county. Not many of them make it that long. We have 3 adult children that are, 2 of them are in the area, one's out in Los Angeles. All 3 sons. Have 2 granddaughters and a grandson. One granddaughter, youngest, is 14. She lives in Jerseyville. And the other granddaughter is 20. She is at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. And my grandson is here in Fosterburg. He's going to start the apprenticeship for operating engineers in January. And I'm very proud of all of them. Now, I went to Alton High School. I graduated in 1968. Graduated one evening, started working at Laclede Steel at 7 o'clock the next morning. Worked there all summer. Then I went to Southern Illinois out here. Once school started in the fall, I had an academic scholarship, so it was an easy decision where to go because that was for me. It was a cheap school. I didn't have to pay any tuition. Taxpayers paid it, thank you. But that's where I went. I got a degree in biology, minors in chemistry. Off and on while I was there, I worked at Laclede Steel for a total of about 2 years. Worked in Schnucks grocery store, got the bad groceries. I was very qualified for the job. I was 21, so I was old enough to sell beer. That's what got me that job. But you had to be 21. You had to be able to put cans in a bag, and I could do those things. When I graduated, I went down to Olin, got a job there, worked there for under a year, and then I started at Washington University School of Dental Medicine and went to dental school for 4 years. When I graduated from there, which would put me 1976. Started to practice in Alton and practiced dentistry for 15 years. After 15 years, I was in a car wreck and hit my head on the inside of a car. It was a T-top, fortunately, or I'd probably be dead, but I knocked the T-top out of the car. When the car stopped moving, I tried to take my seatbelt off, and I couldn't feel anything with my hands. They were both numb, all the way to the fingertips. So I could look down and see where the belt was, and I got out of the darn car before it caught fire. And over a period of a few weeks, the sensation came back in my hands, and I was able to go back to work. But over a period of a few years, it started causing me more troubles, and I had to quit. So in 1991, I had to retire from dentistry, and in 1992, can't do math very well, at the age of 42, I started in law school at St. Louis University. When I got out of there, I worked for a man named Morris Chapman. Any of you ever heard of Morris Chapman? Marla, do you remember Morris? Were you in the courthouse when he was there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I worked for him for 3 years, and then I decided the only way I was going to move up in that practice was to marry his daughter, and she was already married, so I quit and started my own practice with a lady named Pam Wise. Any of you know Pam? She's a Granite City girl. We practiced together for about 6 or 8 years, and then she quit. Then I went into semi-retirement for a couple years. Then I started back with a young man named Randy Gorey. Anybody ever hear of him? You ever hear of Gorey Julian Law Firm? I'm the guy that founded that law firm. I started all that. I'm not sure if I'm proud of it or apologizing for it, but I did it. And altogether, I think I practiced law for about 27 years. I was an associate judge for 2 years because when I went to Florida and got bored, I came back and wanted to do something. And I was trying to think, what in the world should I do? I really don't have any ability to do anything hard work physically anymore, and I'm too old anyway. But I've got all these years invested in law. Maybe I'll do something related to the law. So there was an associate judge spot open. I applied for it, and I got it. And I did that for 2 years, worked right alongside Every Judge Jumper. I enjoyed it. I liked it. But we got into a situation where there were some young attorneys in town that had run for political office and had not gotten elected, that I thought one of them might be better off in that job than me, and I didn't need the money, so I quit and gave them a chance to apply for it. And surprisingly enough, neither one of them really wanted it, and they went to somebody else. So it shows you, you do a good deed and look what happens. Well, now after being sitting on my rear for 2 years, it's time for me to go back to work. I think I still have a lot to offer. If you want me to come split fire, I wouldn't dig a ditch for you. I'm the wrong man. But I can sit in a courtroom and I can manage cases and I can handle people and I can make sure things get done by the numbers and get done correctly. And I would appreciate it if you can vote for me and tell your friends to and give me a chance to do that again. Now, after hearing all that, do you have any more questions? Does that open up anything new you want to ask me? You can ask Marla. They did not kick me out of there. Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. It's easy to explain. Okay. Do you know the ward that you live in? Do you live in Edwardsville? Okay. Do you know what ward you're in? Okay. There's more than one ward, right? Right. And you get to vote in the one you live in, right? And the people you vote for have to also live in that same ward, right? Now, the reason municipalities have different wards and precincts is to try to promote fairness. Doesn't always work, but that's the best thing we've come up with so far. And the reason that's fair is that gives you to have a voice in who is going to be representing you. Now, that person doesn't represent you alone. They sit with all the other aldermen, right? And they all make decisions that impact you and everybody else. The judiciary here is now copying after that pattern. This is very common. Cook County has 25 subcircuits. They've had them for years. It's a big area, a lot of population. In order to promote the ability of you to have people on the bench that have the same values as you and the same interests as you, the subcircuits were set up. The good part about that from subcircuits is all three of us live in a subcircuit, okay? If you didn't have subcircuits, you would wind up eventually with, potentially at least, with all of the judges always being elected out of one high population dense area, okay? Because that could control the majority of all the votes in the county. with 80% of the county not having any representation at all. They could vote, but their candidate never gets elected. No, we're all three running for three different openings. So if you're in the sub-circuit, and I swear to God, the only way you can tell if you're in that sub-circuit that I know of is when you get your ballot and you look at the back of it, okay, second page, center column, the very bottom, you don't have our names there, you can't vote for us, you're not in the sub-circuit. My wife got a call today from a lady who golfs with her who says, how come I can't vote for Barry? His name's not in my ballot. She asked her, where do you live? Godfrey. Well, you're not in the sub-circuit. Well, so if you ask me, if you're in Alton, I can tell you, yes, you're in it. If you're in Edwardsville, maybe. If you're on the north edge of town, maybe. What is it, on the north side of East Union and east side of 140, is it? Yeah. If you're in that part of Edwardsville, you're in it. You're in the sub-circuit. If you're in Granite City, you're in the sub-circuit. Venice and Madison's in the sub-circuit, East Alton and Wood River, a little bit of Godfrey, just the southern part of Godfrey, about 3 city blocks in Bethalto. Okay? So it's really picky and it's hard to tell, but Ms. Mendoza is going to make sure you get the proper ballot, okay? Because they can tell. Please do. Please do, and go to that second page to the very bottom of the middle row and vote for the bottom 3 candidates, because that's us. These 3 can fend for themselves. I'm worried about the judges I'm going to be working with. Anything else? Hey, if I don't know the answer, I'll make up something good. Just throw a question out here. You're not going to bother me. No? I guess it's time for me to be quiet and give someone else a turn. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. That was Judge John Barry Julian, candidate for Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd Circuit Subdistrict 1. And there are 2 more candidates that are running in that subdistrict. However, they are not running against Judge Julian. They are running in 2. We have 3 different judicial races represented. I'm going to ask the next candidate for Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd Circuit Subdistrict, Judge Ryan Jumper, to speak. Thank you.
All right. Hey, I really enjoyed that. That was great, Barry. I'm Judge Ryan Jumper. First, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Edwardsville NAACP for hosting this event. This is an event that over the last several years I've made sure I've attended so that I could be educated about the candidates that were up for office in and around town. They've already said it, but to be an informed voter is the best way to actively participate in our democracy. So I first of all want to thank all of you for being here tonight to take this chance to educate yourselves so you can make an educated decision about who you want to vote for. All right, so having said that, I also want to include that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. For all you survivors out there, keep fighting like a girl. It's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. My mother was fighting breast cancer really most of my life, and to see what she was able to accomplish. I mean, she finished off the better part of 3 separate degrees while battling breast cancer and raising 2 boys and chasing us all around the places in this town, in this county, in this country, following us doing what we were doing. She did all those things and will continue to this day to be an inspiration to me. Part of why I am so committed to public service is what she and my father, who's here tonight, instilled in me about what it means to serve your community. As way of background, I am born in Alton, Illinois, and raised in Edwardsville. I'm still a member of Mount Joy Baptist Church here in town. I was a 1996 graduate of Edwardsville High School, where I lettered in baseball, basketball, and football. Went on to play college football at Illinois Wesleyan University. I was a Titan Award winner there, which is for the football team, and a Dean Scholar. The reality is that the interaction between sports and education as a student athlete is really what has, one, kept me out of trouble, and then also provided opportunity for me at each step along the way until you get to that point where you get a chance to make decisions about what you want to do for the rest of your life. So after graduating from Illinois Wesleyan, I worked there for a couple of years, and as I was telling all the young kids there, and I was recruiting for the university and really doing my best to open up opportunities for folks that were like me, and that definition of like me is someone from anywhere where maybe you didn't know the way and the steps to take to get to and through school. Maybe you were the first person in your family to go off to college and to get a degree. So when I say like me, I mean all of you too, and I mean like your kids and like your grandkids, in that what you really need is someone to show you the way. And so I committed myself to that. I did that for 2 years, and I would go into some of the smallest places in the smallest cities, and I would recruit kids there, and really bright kids who just wanted a chance at an education, and found those kids and brought them back to a place that had helped me get to where I was going. I spoke so fondly and so greatly about what you can accomplish from that place that eventually I convinced myself that I had more to offer, and I went to law school at Southern Illinois University down in Carbondale. I was a Neal Clinical Fellow down there, and what that means is that I went around to a lot of rural communities in Southern Illinois, mainly, and helped them with basic, really needs, legal needs in their lives. So if you needed a will or a power of attorney, or needed just some direction in where to go to figure out how to pay your taxes, that's what the services that we provided, and the school thankfully provided that fellowship for me so I can devote my time to that. I was also down there and had good enough grades that I was able to write onto the SIU Law Journal and also the Journal of Legal Medicine, so that I was engaged both as in the philanthropic side of the law while I was there, and then also on the academic side, so that when I graduated, I had the chance to go and work for one of the really premier firms in this area at Thompson Coburn over there in St. Louis. In my time while I was working there, you had all of the trappings of that big law firm. I had an office right there on the riverfront. I was working on the biggest cases, everything that was in the newspaper every day. But every day you get that feeling, and you see my mom at home struggling, going through what she was going through, and you get that feeling that maybe you were meant to do more. And so I spent, well, I shouldn't say spent, and so then I course corrected my career from one where I'd be sitting in boardrooms and working for people who honestly had an army of people just like me working from them, to a career where I was able to serve people just like you. I spent 5 years really working on behalf of individual people all over Missouri and Illinois in the federal and state courts. I enjoyed my time as a litigator. I really enjoyed being in the courtroom with the nature of my practice, and I had a chance to go around and see a lot of judges and see how they treated the people that came before them, to identify what kind of person I wanted to be if I ever got in that position of power. And then ultimately in 2015, there was an opportunity here in Madison County to become an associate judge. I applied that first time, and I didn't get it, which was understandable because no one here knew me other than by my work and by my resume and the things that I'd done in other places. And so at that point, I switched my practice and switched my direction again and went to work on behalf of workers at the Callis Law Firm in Granite City. That was the best decision I have ever made in my career. I got to work every day with some people that I truly admire. My campaign chairman, Supreme Court Justice retired, Phil Rarick, was someone I got to eat lunch with daily. Former judges like George Philkoff, Larry Calvo, whose dad was a Supreme Court judge, and lest I forget, Lance Callis, who was one of the preeminent lawyers in this area for workers' rights, and also for philanthropy and what he did for his city, the citizens of Madison County, and how much he cared. I mean, it was neat. In at my time down there, we gave away more hams and turkeys than you can possibly imagine to people who, just like me, could have used that little bit of help. And he didn't take it as, I'm a big shot here, have a ham. It was because he truly cared about the people in his community and serving them. And so really my role and my job there was to serve his 50 years worth of friends that he made as he'd represented them on their legal issues in their time there. They said that was the best decision I ever made, so that in 2018 then, I was appointed as the 7th African-American Black associate judge in the history of Madison County. I have served in that role, said for the last 5 years. It has been the joy of my life to be able to serve the citizens of the 3rd Judicial Circuit, which includes Madison and Bond County. I have served in nearly every capacity in this district. I have some of the largest cases that come before come up in this jurisdiction. Those are the L cases. I also have the Chancery docket, which is largely a court of justice, where every day I get charged with doing substantial justice for people in situations that the law doesn't always necessarily spell out the exact remedy. And what I've learned in my time as a judge is a lot of what Barry already talked about how people want to be treated. Everyone wants to be treated fairly when they come into the courthouse. Not more importantly, but equally importantly, is being treated with dignity. I already know when they walk in the courtroom that I have all the power in these situations, that I have the power to influence their life one way or another, for good or for bad, in those moments I have with them. And I'll say this, for most of these people, they don't ever really have access to someone like me, or like Barry, or like Ebony. They're going in there maybe for the first time, they're a little bit afraid, they don't entirely understand the law. And anything I can do to help them and encourage them, not to advocate for them because I'm not their lawyer, I am that impartial referee, but if you can explain something in a way that is understandable, if you can treat them with dignity while they're learning the things they need to know, and if you can explain why you're reaching the decision that you're going to reach, then everyone has more confidence in the legal system when judges work in that way. And that's what I've done. I am very proud to have been rated one of the highest rated judges in this election. Actually, I would say the highest rated, but Barry beat me out in one category, so I can't claim that. But I invite you all to go and check out my... Yeah, he says it was good looks. Somebody killed his microphone. But again, it's been the joy of my life to serve you with your votes on November 8th and before, because early voting has started already. I will continue to serve you as a circuit judge here in Madison County, and I again appreciate the time here tonight.
Thank you very much. That was Judge A. Ryan Jumper, who is a candidate for Judge of the Circuit Court 3rd Circuit Subdistrict 1. And we have another candidate now for Judge of the Circuit Court 3rd Circuit Subdistrict 1 for yet a third judicial race. This is, I hope you will speak to us next. The candidate is Ebony Huddleston. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm going to apologize in advance. I caught a cold over the weekend, and I'm very nasally, and it always attacks me in my throat, so my voice has been going in and out all day. So I will not probably talk as long as everybody else has, not because I don't want to, but because I probably can't. But first of all, of course, thank you for the invitation, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Edwardsville branch of NAACP for this opportunity to introduce myself to you and to give you more information about myself. These other individuals on the stage here today are really some quality candidates. We are looking to make sure that this county is going to go in the right direction moving forward. So as far as me and my interest in why am I here and why am I running for judge and who are you, let's get into it. So I'm born and raised here in Madison County in Alton and Godfrey. Graduated from Alton High as valedictorian. Went away for college down in New Orleans. I would say purely for purposes of just entertainment, and I knew it was a fun city, but I actually did go there to get a good education, which I did. Got degrees in English, Spanish, and accounting. Yes, I got 3 degrees in 4 years. Then went on to law school in Ohio, and then came back home upon graduating and have practiced right here in Madison County ever since I graduated from law school. So this community has meant something to me. This community has invested in me, not only through scholarships and academic programs and athletic programs. This community has invested in me to say, you know what, we're going to help you get the education you need. And what I took from that is that I'm going to bring that home. I'm not going to go away. I'm going to come right back home and invest in my community. And that's what I've done. I worked at a firm. I interned with them actually while I was in law school for a couple of years in Godfrey. And then upon graduating, they hired me full time. Worked my way through that firm as obviously first an intern, then an associate, and then as assistant vice president. Worked there for about 15 years. Then in 2018, started my own firm. My firm is in Alton right now on Washington Avenue. And the types of law that I have done is anything from real estate and family law, commercial issues, business organizations. I told you I have 3 degrees, right? English, Spanish, and accounting. So I've used all of those in my practice. So I've done things with adoptions that involve different languages, Spanish in particular, as well as tax litigation. Most people find it boring, but I love fighting the IRS. I love it because I know the IRS, well, I shouldn't say this, but the IRS to me is that big machine, and we are regular working class people trying to make it day to day. And if there's a way that we can have some of our taxes saved, that's what I'm working for. So I have gone up against the IRS for regular small businesses since I've been practicing and been able to save them millions and hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes because, quite frankly, the IRS tried to beat them out of their money, and I wasn't going to let that happen. So I've also worked in federal court as well as state court, so not only IRS, but bankruptcy. So again, helping people who have just fallen on hard times and needed a second opportunity or needed another chance to get things right. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do that. So I've helped people from every spectrum, whether it's whatever socioeconomic background you come from, whatever your religious beliefs are, it didn't matter to me. What mattered to me is that you felt like you had a chance to maneuver through this world with the best opportunities possible. And of course, sometimes that involves navigating the legal system. Look, the legal world is not easy to navigate. The laws are not easy to read. The laws are not easy to understand and interpret. And all respect to the senators and the legislatures, you all do such a fantastic job of even creating legislation that can help us. So then it's our job to interpret that law, to study that law, apply the facts, and then make sure we give you the correct ruling. So what sets me apart or what makes me different? Why am I qualified for this job? First of all, I have extensive courtroom experience. I have extensive legal knowledge in various areas that I've already told you about that I practice in, as well as this is my passion. This is what I love to do. Serving the community, serving people, this is what I love to do. I've been doing it since I graduated law school, and that's what I'll always continue to do. This is not about power for me. This is about empowering my community. You all pay my salary, not the other way around. I have a robe on, Lord willing, if I'm elected, I'll have a robe on, but at the end of the day, you need to feel like you can walk into my courtroom, know that you will be heard fairly, impartially, and even if for some reason the ruling doesn't turn out the way that you would have wanted it to, you felt like, okay, at least I got a fair opportunity, and she did hear me all the way out. She didn't degrade me or demean me or make me feel less than what I am. I may not know how to navigate this system, but you know what? She gave me a fair opportunity, and I understood why she made the ruling she did. In my years of practice, there are too many people who, when they do decide and get the courage to come to me as an attorney to say they need help navigating the legal system, that they are just scared. They're scared because they're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, and I know if I go in this courtroom, I'm not gonna be treated fairly. I'm not gonna be looked at as a real person. I've made it my mission while I've practiced law to to make sure that people feel like they're heard and that they'll be treated fairly. I want to say that my dad was a coal miner. My mom was an educator. My sister, bless her heart, she was an educator as well until she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis at the age of 25, and then is now wheelchair bound. I could not do anything other than serving the community and making sure that every citizen, every voter felt as if, you know what, if I have to come before you as a judge, you understand me in some way. You will have some kind of compassion for why I'm here. I have a very sordid, in a good way, background, meaning that I have come across a lot of people. I serve on the board of Alton Memorial Hospital, and BJC. That's one of the largest employers here in the Metro East area. I'm working behind the scenes and have been working behind the scenes to make sure the people of our community are serviced as best as they can be. I'm on the board of Impact CIL, which is a Center for Independent Living. I got on there because of when my sister was diagnosed with MS, I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, how can I make sure that I can assist her in any way I can? Get involved in that portion of the community. So on and on, Boys and Girls Club, so on and so forth. My point is that you may not have seen me, you may not have heard my name, you may not know anything about me, but that's because I've been working hard behind the scenes to make sure that you all have the best opportunities, and not you, but me as well. We all have the best opportunities. So I know I can do even more to empower you as a judge, meaning making decisions about your life and your brother's life and your sister's life, your cousin's life, your children, your grandchildren's lives. You want to know that that person making the decision about their lives is somebody you can trust. And they've said these key words: fair, impartial, know the law, have the intelligence, but make sure that we don't bring politics into the courtroom about it. It doesn't matter what side of the political aisle somebody sits on when they come before me, and even now in my practice, my whole career I've been dealing with people on both sides of the aisle. And I think there's a level of respect for that, because I'm respected in a way that says, all right, Ebony, we may differ politically, but at the end of the day, you know what you're talking about, and I'll respect your opinion. I'll do the same thing on the bench. I will make sure to we'll review all of the judicial policies and hold all of the judges accountable. We'll work together as best we can with transparency and accountability, and then implement the appropriate changes necessary to make sure that we remove ourselves from the process and focus on the citizens and the voters and making sure that our courthouse is serving you all and us. I'm not above the law. I'm not above you. I'm not above anybody else. We're all the same. That's how I've always lived my life. That's how I always continue to live my life as a judge. So I would ask that you would consider voting for me on November 8th. I would appreciate it. And if you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you. You just heard from Ebony Huddleston, who is a candidate for Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd District, Subdistrict 1. I'm going to just reiterate the names of the candidates we've heard from today, as I thank them very much for being here. The first candidate on the far side of the table, Debbie Ming Mendoza, Madison County Clerk and Recorder. Next candidate, Chris Tharp, Illinois State Senator, 56th District. Third candidate, Illinois Representative in the General Assembly, 112th Representative District, Katie Stewart. Next candidate, Judge John Barry Julian, Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd District, Subdistrict 1 candidate. Then Judge Ryan Jumper, Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd District 1. Then Ebony Huddleston, Judge of the Circuit Court, 3rd Circuit, Subdistrict 1. Thank you very much, all of you. It's been a pleasure to hear from you. I'm sorry that we weren't able to ask questions. We only do that when there are two candidates. And when there aren't two candidates, then we just have the pleasure of hearing from you directly. Thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. Good night, everyone.